Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. Living in a bustling city, my husband and I had grown accustomed to the challenges of parking. Thankfully, we had a driveway, which provided some relief from the daily struggle. Unfortunately, our joy was short-lived due to a group of entitled neighbors. While they had always been friendly in the past, things took a turn when they started hosting weekly yard sales. Initially, it was a minor inconvenience as more cars crowded the street on Saturdays. However, their actions escalated to a whole new level. One fateful afternoon, we returned home to find someone parked in our driveway. To our disbelief, it was our neighbor's car. Confused, we approached him, seeking an explanation for this intrusion. His response was astounding. He claimed that he needed space for his yard sale visitors. He had taken it upon himself to occupy our driveway without permission. I couldn't fathom his audacity. Politely, we requested that he move his car, emphasizing that it was our private property. Irritation flashed across his face as he stubbornly refused, citing the busyness of his sale. My husband intervened, pointing out that his wife was available to assist him, making it a matter of mere minutes. My frustration grew with every passing moment. If he needed additional parking for his customers, he should have asked us or considered utilizing their detached garage instead of trespassing on our property. His sense of entitlement was infuriating. After a heated exchange, he finally moved his car, allowing us to reclaim our driveway. The following week, however, we encountered a familiar sight. Our neighbor's car, once again, blocking our driveway. To make matters worse, another unfamiliar vehicle joined it. This was the final straw for my husband. We approached the yard sale demanding that our neighbor remove both cars or face police involvement. We also insisted on knowing the identity of the second car's owner. Though causing a scene wasn't ideal, we were tired of fighting for what was rightfully ours. If our neighbor wanted to host yard sales, he needed to ensure proper parking arrangements were in place or guide his customers to park elsewhere. It was a matter of fairness and respect, which he seemed to disregard completely. Predictably, our neighbor took offense to being called out in front of his customers. He claimed that the second car belonged to an elderly man shopping with his grandchild, arguing that asking him to park on the street was a safety hazard. It was evident he was grasping at straws to justify his actions. I suspected he had permitted one of his customers to park in our driveway, and his empathy act fell flat. With my phone in hand, I dialed the non-emergency police line, right in front of our disgruntled neighbor. The officers responded promptly, allowing us to explain the situation. Our neighbor attempted to defend himself, stating that he only parked in our driveway during his yard sales. The officers shut down his weak argument, emphasizing that permission was required regardless of the reason or frequency. Infuriated, our neighbor refused to move his car, prompting the police officers to call for a tow truck. Watching his car being towed away, his fury was palpable. We didn't see his car for the next 3 weeks, assuming it took him some time to retrieve it. During this period, he resorted to bad-mouthing us to a few neighbors who were close friends with him. Nonetheless, the majority of our neighbors stood by us, recognizing the injustice we had endured. As for the few households that remained distant, we paid them no mind. We were relieved to no longer deal with such entitled individuals. Interestingly, our neighbor continued hosting yard sales every Saturday, but now with a sign that read, "Parking behind the house." It seemed he had learned his lesson the hard way. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that his entitled behavior had consequences. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I put a trampoline in my backyard in early 2017. I have 3 young boys, and we have enjoyed it immensely. My neighbor, the Homeowners Association's president at the time, went to sell his house in the spring of 2018, and his realtor said the trampoline in my backyard might be a detriment to getting top dollar for his home, so he convinced the neighbor on the other side of my house to complain as well. Out of the blue, I received a message from the Homeowners Association's property manager that the neighbors complained, and I would need to submit a form to get it approved. Intermission. What's sad is that I was friendly with both of these people. They had been in my home. They could have talked to me face to face. With one of the neighbors, I paid for our shared fence at her request, since her neighbor on her other side wouldn't contribute to their shared fence, another board member and human piece of garbage. I would have been willing to dig a hole for the trampoline, to hide it more, or purchase a new one with elastic bands rather than springs to make it quieter. Both of those options are cheaper than getting a lawyer. But nobody asked. Nobody came to me to have a face-to-face, heart-to-heart discussion about their concerns. A few ironies. These are 5-bedroom homes. Clearly, people with kids are going to move in, and they are going to be noisy in their backyard with or without play equipment. The guy who sold his home smoked like a chimney. I don't think my trampoline should have been his top concern. The people who ended up buying his home are a great family with 2 kids who don't care about toys in other people's backyards. My neighbors have raised kids to adulthood, one of them 2 very active boys. When I pointed this out to her, the words that actually came out of her mouth were, "I know it's challenging to raise boys, but we're at different stages of our lives," as if that justified her trying to screw me. Back to the story. I filled out the form and sent it in. The Architectural Review Committee denied it a month later. I appealed the decision and met with the board in August. They sent me a letter and said it was in violation. I asked which rules I violated. They never sent me a letter, so I asked again a week ago. The property manager was adamant she had sent the letter, but I asked for proof. She forwarded an email where she put my name in the to field after the fact. I had a strong suspicion it was after the fact due to the following reasons. An homeowners association's meeting was mentioned that never took place. The responses to my questions varied in color, indicating they had been edited at different times. She responded immediately to my request for proof by indicating she would forward the email, but then took an hour, presumably editing a draft she never sent. She cited a rule early in the email, but then cited an additional rule later that superseded the first. The first cited rule could have simply been omitted. The message was not marked as forwarded message at the top, and the sent time didn't include seconds. None of these things are a smoking gun, but they are suspicious. I asked the other people in the to field if they received a copy of the email with my name in the address field. The only honest member of the board replied he hadn't. The rest remained silent because they didn't want to look like they and the property manager dropped the ball. Intermission. If you're curious why the board didn't like my trampoline, here is the rationale provided in the letter that was never sent. Due to the close proximity of the homes to each other and the small yards, the trampoline is unsightly to the homes surrounding it. Realtors for those homes surrounding you have stated that it is a detraction to selling homes and is lowering the home values of those around it. There have also been neighbor complaints regarding the noise level, which creates those homeowners to be unable to enjoy their homes. They are also unable to use certain portions of their homes while the trampoline is being used. My kids all weigh under 35 pounds. They go to bed at 7 p.m. and don't jump on the trampoline in the morning before 10 a.m. My neighbors bought homes 10 feet away from mine. What did they expect? Back to the story. The year-end meeting was scheduled for yesterday, and 4 board positions were up for election. I got 3 of my friends on the street to run with me. I went door to door every day for a week and spoke with the majority of homeowners about their discontent with the street. I got a third of the community to sign proxy forms stating that I would vote on their behalf. I went to the meeting last night and put these fools on blast. I listed calmly all the ways the current board was failing the community and my plan to right their wrongs. The vote was a landslide in favor of myself and my friends getting elected. One awful board member remains, but he is the minority. We fired the property manager who was uncommunicative and flat-out dishonest. The trampoline endures. The only bummer is now I have to manage a street that includes some legit crazy people. But this whole episode has convinced my wife that we will never live in homeowners associations again, which I count as a huge victory in addition to the trampoline remaining where it is today. The next one is a petty revenge story. My aunt, now 40, has 3 kids under the age of 10. At every family gathering, I, 23 AM, become the de facto babysitter despite me not wanting to so the adults can drink. It was her birthday dinner yesterday, and my mom promised me that I wouldn't have to babysit and that the kids would be at a friend's house. The first step I take into their home is greeted by 2 ear-splitting screams about how much the kids missed me and 1 toddler yodeling. I immediately realize I might have been lied to. Normally I don't drink, huge lightweight, but since this was a special occasion, I had made some plans. So my aunt enters the hall to greet my mom while I reach into my backpack, walk into the living room, and crack open one out of two 12% Viking beers I specially ordered for me and my uncle. He likes weird beer. And we start drinking. About 3 minutes later, my aunt sees the can and starts screaming at me for drinking while watching the kids. I only hear distant screaming. I repeat my mom's promise, and she calls me the R word when they are clearly staying here. So I reach out my hand and say, $200 for emergency babysitting, and I won't finish this beer. She says, hell no. So I chug the half-liter can to the loud cheers and laughs from my dad and uncle. When I'm done, I say, happy birthday, mommy sister, with a burp. My mom just looks hugely embarrassed for my aunt. My designated driver dad ends up watching them the entire night instead. I think he might schedule a vasectomy soon. The next one is a malicious compliance story. At my last job, my main duty was the IT manager for the entire location, among other duties. I had been there for 3.5 years at that point, and as I was trusted by everyone, if I had something important to say, people listened. During COVID, while other departments' budgets were getting slashed and employees were getting laid off, I was able to replace a lot of our aging IT infrastructure. At the beginning of my last year there, the owner hired a young, I only tell the truth even though you won't like it, narcissist as his second in charge. He hired this bonehead as his successor to run this location, while the owner would focus on opening up a second. In the first 3 months, Bonehead pissed off everyone to the point where 15 people from various positions left the company to find another job. This was during the pandemic, when a lot of people were thankful they had a job, and 15 people were like, I'm going to risk finding another job in the middle of a pandemic rather than stay here. He was that bad. As Bonehead started to piss off our customer base and our sales started to suffer, we switched over to cost-cutting mode. The owner had largely checked out at this point, so longtime vendors were replaced with friends and family of Bonehead, services were downgraded or cut, and pay plans for the sales department were messed with, which further eroded the morale of the workforce. One day, Bonehead came to me and told me to stop doing safety checks and maintenance repairs on our products so sales could post larger sales grosses. I loudly objected and went to the owner. As the owner is always happy to hear something about making more money, he threw his support behind Bonehead's idea. A few months of this went by, and after he fired one of my employees on my birthday because he refused to give Bonehead access to the server room, it was restricted to me, the owner, and my employee, I knew it was time to go. I found a new job, put in my 2 weeks' notice, and of course, Bonehead stopped my direct deposit on payday, the day after I put in my 2 weeks' notice. I decided it wasn't worth working the extra 2 weeks and informed them that I was out of there while filing a complaint with the state over my withheld wages. As I was walking out the door, Bonehead reminded me that I was no longer an employee of the company and not to get involved with the company's affairs, and possible legal repercussions if I said anything negative about the company. My new job pays more, fewer hours, and less stress. Fast forward to this Monday, I received a call from my local internet provider. They told me that my internet service bill had gone unpaid for the last 6 months and would be cut off if I didn't pay immediately. I logged in and saw that my account was paid, so after a few back and forths, I found out that I was still the point of contact for my last job's account on their internet service. Remembering what was told to me when I left, I just informed them that I could not get involved as I no longer work there. They asked me for an updated point of contact, and if they couldn't get one, they would be forced to suspend their service. I repeated that I was not allowed by threat of legal action to be involved in their affairs and left it at that. An hour later, a buddy of mine who still works there called me and told me they had to stop working as their internet service was shut off. I played dumb, but it took 3 days to restore it. The next one is an entitled people story. So my daughter, we'll call her T, came over to the house to do some laundry, and she was asking, "What the hell is Aunt Liz's problem?" I asked what she meant, and she explained how my sister had posted on Facebook that she and her husband were going away for their 15th wedding anniversary. T said that she had sent Aunt Liz a congrats post, and Liz responded back with, "Very freaking funny." So I sat her down, and I told her what I'm about to tell you. When T was 4, Liz had called us and said that she was getting married in a few months. She and I were doing the typical girly squee sounds and oh that's wonderful stuff that sisters usually do. When we calmed down, She asked if T would be willing to be the flower girl. I asked her, and she said yes and chanted, "Emma, be flower girl," and started running around and pretending to fly like she was a new member of the Justice League or something. I told Liz, "We need to work on it, but she's in." About a month later, the invites came in. In them, it was stated that Liz did not want any children under the age of 17 there and explained why. The reasons were sound: bored children, potential disruptions, etc. So I understood them. I did, however, have one concern. I called her and asked, "Hey, just got the invites. Me and the boys will be there, but Hubs has a business trip that month and can't make it. Do you still want T as your flower girl?" Liz replied, "Oh God, yes, she's too cute to not have her." I shrugged and said, "Well, it'll be the four of us. Consider this your RSVP." She said, "Great, see you there." We hung up and I went online and made the reservations. A room for me and T and an adjoining room for the boys, Ron, 19, and Carl, 17. Names changed and all that. Fast forward to the weekend of the wedding. The venue is a 6-hour drive for me, and I had to get out there on a Friday for the Saturday wedding. Since I had to wait for Carl to get out of school, we got a late start on Friday, and we got there around 10 p.m. I got out and checked into the hotel room, and I texted Liz. They were still at the venue and would be there at least another hour or two, taking care of details, so we drove over. We got there, and it was the usual pre-wedding chaos. Liz was getting things to her liking, and honestly going a bit bridezilla. She saw us first, beamed, and came over. However, when she got closer and saw who was in my party, she blew up. "Why did you bring her?" she screamed. I said, "But you wanted her for..." I was cut off, and Liz went into a complete screaming meltdown about how this was her day. She didn't want children there, and how dare you bring a child to my wedding, while looking right at T, and then stormed off screeching curses into the night. I was done. T was crying and saying, "But I wanted to be flower girl," in between sobs, and Ron and Carl looked like they wanted to kill their aunt, and at that moment I wasn't sure I wanted to stop them. I picked up T and tried to comfort her and herded the crew back to the car, and we drove back to the hotel. I was seriously considering just packing up the car and heading home. I told the boys that, and Ron was being the level-headed one. "Mom, it's a 6-hour drive, and we're all too tired and pissed to make that drive right now. We'd get in around 5, 6 in the morning, depending on rest stops and bathroom breaks. Do you really want to do that since we have a nice hotel room for the night? How about we go back to the hotel, get a night's sleep, and head back in the morning?" I grudgingly admitted that he had a point. Carl piped up, "Mom, I've got another idea." I was waspish, and I kinda snapped, "What is it?" Carl looked up from his phone and sheepishly said, "Well, T's pretty upset," which was true. It's been 15 minutes, and she's still sobbing, "I want to be flower girl" over and over in the back seat. Carl continued, "There's a county fair that just started tonight. Carnival rides, petting zoo, games, that sort of thing." I snapped, "So?" Carl is made of sterner stuff. He didn't wither under my anger and continued on, "We have the hotel until Sunday morning. Why not spend the night here, go to the fair tomorrow, and then go home on Sunday like we planned? Give T something to think about other than Aunt Liz's freak out, let her have some fun, and we all could use a mom and the gang outing right about now." I calmed down a bit and said, "An idea not without merit." I looked at T in the rear view and said, "What about it, T?" "You want to go to the fair instead of the wedding?" She sobbed. "I want to be flower girl," Carl piped up. "They're going to have cotton candy and deep-fried Oreos." The crying stopped. There was one last sniffle, and an exhausted but determined, "I want to go to the fair." So that's what we did, and we had fun. Liz could have her bridezilla day, and that was that. Except that it wasn't. We had all turned our phones off since we knew some calls would be coming in, and we just could not be bothered to deal with it. When we got back to the hotel, my mom and dad were there. They lit into me about how T was supposed to be there as flower girl, and we just blew my sister and her special day off. "Mom, Dad," I said, "you know how the invite said no children? I called Liz when we got ours, and I asked if she still wanted T as a flower girl. She said that she did. So I brought T to the venue last night, and Liz flipped out about how dare I bring a child to her special day." Carl, bless his "I can't function without an iPhone" in his hand, heart, pulled up the video. I didn't know he had recorded it, but he was able to catch the final, "How dare you bring a child to my wedding?" I lit into them back. So if she's supposed to be there as a flower girl but not be there because she's a child, how am I supposed to pull that off? We went to the fair to calm T down and so she'd have something happy to remember and hopefully forget that Liz cursed her out. To her face. Mom and Dad went quiet and then apologized. They said that they were going to have a word with Liz when she got back from the honeymoon and then had a nice chat with T about the things she saw and did. We drove home Sunday morning and that was that. Story over. Back in the present, T was blown away. Mom, would I be a bad person for unfriending her and blocking her ass? I said no, and we went back to enjoying some mom and daughter time. The next one is an entitled parent story. I'm a preschool teacher. Last year, a mom got her child into my program against our wishes. It had nothing to do with the child, it's 100% the mom. She's incredibly stressed and toxic. She comes onto campus without checking in, walks in unannounced, complains about everything and everyone, uses the fact that her child has autism to try to get her way, told parents my program is a bad program after 3 days, even though she kept her child in and, at that point, didn't volunteer. She tries to change my lesson plans, disciplines other children, takes them into or out of the classroom without telling me, and much more. The other day, she told me that her nonverbal son said that I'm mean, he hates me, and I yelled at him. What actually happened was he hit 3 children. So I told him I didn't like that he was hitting people and that if they do something he doesn't like, he should come and get me. I didn't use a stern tone or raise my voice. She then informed me that her husband was going to come and yell at me, but I let her know that wouldn't be wise since he's not allowed on the campus. Registered. Since then, she has told 3 other staff members that I yell at the kids and cuss at them. They all told her that's a lie and that she has no idea what she's talking about. At one point, she flipped out and started cursing in front of a bunch of students, claiming that I'm the one swearing. She then admitted that she thinks I need to treat her child differently because of his autism. According to her, I can never discipline him because he perceives it as yelling, so I need to always speak sweetly to him. However, it was pointed out to her that if I were to treat her child any differently than the other children, I could get in trouble with the state during my monitoring for showing favoritism or even discrimination. In summary, this mom lied and said I'm yelling and cussing at the kids because she wants me to treat her child like a little prince instead of treating him equally. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.